Why isn't this place called Star Wars Land? Officially, this place is called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And for true fans, it's not just that. You're stepping into Black Spire Outpost on the remote planet of Batuu at a specific time between Star Wars Episode 8 and Episode 9. And that level of specificity isn't unique to Star Wars, Splash Mountain, the Cars Ride, the Matterhorn, except those aren't their official names either. Disney gives almost everything a longer, more precise title. But of course, nobody talks that way. We simplify, we compress, we shorten things because it's easier. So I'm curious why Disney felt the need to be so specific, and why go through all the work to name so many things in Star Wars Land, and then you've got a food place called a Milk Stand where I can get blue milk. Because if you zoom out, this isn't really about a theme park at all. It's about how brands in general build identity to make the buying process easier. Disney has been around for over 100 years. In that time, billions of dollars have been spent to establish their brand, and this is partly what has made them so successful. I mean, a brand is essential for recognition. It allows a person or company to distinguish themselves from others using a myriad of tactics. When I think of Disney, I think of family-friendly, I think of the mouse, I think of creativity, especially when it comes to theme parks. If you close your eyes and you think of Disney, I'm sure good old Michael Mouse is staring back at you, burned into your retinas. You're welcome for that horrifying visual. In other ways not so visually scarring, there are some other freaky ways that brands can get ingrained into our psyches. Take a look at your shopping list. Did you list laundry detergent or Tide? What about soda or Coke? Baked whole grain snack food crackers or wheat thins? I'm sure a team of marketing professionals is punching the air right now in jubilation. All the ads and campaigns they ran were worth it just to end up on this YouTube video. Because brand recall and recognition doesn't happen from just one advertisement. It comes from multiple campaigns based on years of research. You know about Disney because they've been in the zeitgeist for over 100 years. And each movie, artist, and sub-brand that has come from Disney during that time has reinforced the brand. And in recent years, it's taken on a conquest, folding strong existing brands under its larger umbrella. Star Wars was brought into the fold of Disney in 2012. Before that, it had 35 years and multiple films to establish its own brand recognition. Though the first movie may have been made on a shoestring budget, Disney ended up shelling out $4 billion to acquire Lucasfilm. George Lucas, already sitting pretty after capitalizing on the success of his IP with a lucrative merchandising deal, got a large chunk of that cash. After the first film came out, Lucas gave up his director fee for sequel rights and merchandising. Many would call this a shrewd move, but I wonder what Bill Watterson thinks of this. I don't know that Disney and Star Wars are interchangeable like Coke and soda or Tide and detergent, but Disney has definitely successfully folded the Star Wars brand into their brand hierarchy, and they're just one of many IPs Disney has acquired over the years. ESPN, Marvel, Pixar, those are all sub-brands of Disney. I'm sure I'm just one of millions in the last year that spent thousands of dollars at Disneyland to experience the Star Wars brand in person. And if it wasn't for Star Wars, someone else was shelling out for the Marvel experience or to let their kid meet Bluey. These sub-brands benefit from the Disney recognition and recall as their revenue ladders up into Disney's pockets. But with all this, I don't think they'd care to be so specific in their naming if it was just about brand recognition. They know, like we know, that the difference between calling it Disney and Disneyland isn't going to keep people from visiting the parks. So while I might take some joy in the parks calling it something like Laser Town instead of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, there's another reason for Disney to be so specific: immersion. Since its beginning, Disneyland has been a place designed for everyone. While you might associate it with being a place that's just for children, Walt Disney himself said that this was not the case. When asked about his films in a BBC interview, he said,
"Well, no, you have to appeal to the adult, or, the adults have the money, the children don't have any money."
A bit more delicately, when he was talking about the original reason for building Disneyland, Walt expressed a desire for a place where he and parents like him could also have fun alongside their children.
The parents and the children could have fun together.
One of my favorite things to experience at Disneyland, and the feeling that keeps bringing me back to spend money, is the escapism. It happens at least once every trip, whether I'm imbibing a signature Disney cocktail or singing along on the Little Mermaid ride. It's where I forget where I am. Reality melts away, and I'm not worrying about the world or if the money that I'm spending is worth it. I'm sure that nostalgia plays into this as well, as I yearn for the innocence that I once felt attending the same park as a child. But Disneyland is not just for freaks like me who know where they keep all the corn dogs. Disneyland is meant to appeal to as many people as possible. By capitalizing on their various IPs, Disney provides a world where folks from 2 to 200 can exist in the same place, enjoying themselves in exchange for the price of admission. Perhaps Disney could get away with calling Galaxy's Edge Star Wars Land, but for the dedicated fans, the specific names provide a level of immersion that deepens the experience. Cars Land doesn't require the same level of immersion as its audience represents a younger demographic. There's also a level of detail that Disney can go to that is rarely matched. Star Wars fans are, to put it lightly, nerds. We, I say begrudgingly as one of them, have deep knowledge of the lore and canon and enjoy discussing the details amongst one another. I'll get ahead of it and admit that Star Wars fans can be overzealous, which I find grating at times. Why don't we just all settle down and share a glass of blue milk at the milk stand, eh? Development of Galaxy's Edge began soon after Disney acquired Lucasfilm. They could have very easily phoned it in and opened up a cheap land with carnival rides and basic foodstuffs with the Star Wars label on them, but that's not the Disney way. At the very least, they learned their lesson after spending $1 billion to reimagine California Adventure only a few years after initially cobbling together a paltry excuse for a theme park. While there are many worlds within the Star Wars story that Disney could have selected from, they created a new world for all guests to enjoy. While nerds like me might have enjoyed pod racing on Tatooine or riding swoop bikes from Endor, Joe and Susie from South Dakota might just want to experience a world different than their own. They don't need the lore dump. By creating Batuu, a new world, Disney could appeal to as many folks as possible. They drew inspiration from real places like Istanbul, Morocco, and Egypt. They even took inspiration from Ralph McQuarrie's original concept art for the original Star Wars trilogy. They spared no expense with the details. There's even a product tie-in with Coke products where the bottles sold in the land have been given an in-universe design. Scott Trowbridge, senior creative leader at Disney, said this: "Our intent is to make it feel as if you just walked into one of the movies. Bringing Star Wars to life in the physical world gives us the opportunity to play with a whole bunch of things we've never done before, to really engage all the senses. What does that street feel like? What does that animal smell like? What does blue milk taste like?" See, it always comes back to milk. There are actually 2 versions of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, one in Disneyland Resort in California and another in Disney World Resort in Florida. When researching this piece, I was amazed to discover that the level of detail that they went to for each location was unmatched. Because the 2 resorts face different cardinal directions and are on different latitudes, sunlight hits the land in different ways. To account for this, Disney actually designed each land with separate shades of paint and color schemes. If Disney cares about how light hits its buildings, you know there was deep thought put into the naming. Labeling it Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and placing it in the village of Black Spire Outpost on the planet of Batuu puts you, the guest, in that world. Star Wars Land could be anywhere, and you're not just anywhere. But they didn't stop there. They crafted a deeper narrative than just names. Galaxy's Edge is set between the films of Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. The characters that you interact with in that land, the stories that take place, all exist in a specific time and place. It adds another level of immersion, and while a dork like me has the context to understand the full picture, Joe and Susie from South Dakota may visit Galaxy's Edge and finally be inspired to dive deeper into the Star Wars lore. Just as Walt said, it's designed for both the adults and the kids. I'll let you decide who's who in this scenario. My Substack friend Hannah J has a wonderful piece on personal brand. There's a particular quote that struck me. The internet has decided that mystery is a liability, that ambiguity is a flaw, that if you can't explain yourself in one sentence, you don't deserve attention. So we compress ourselves, we sand off the strange edges, we rehearse the same 3 stories until they harden into identity. Disney has a hardened identity, but then again, it's been around over 100 years. Star Wars didn't exist when Walt first started dreaming up Main Street USA. So if a brand like Disney can shift, does the same have to be said for people? I've had numerous brands that I've developed for myself over the years to define my work. I understand that in order to build an audience from which I can monetize my work, I can get there faster by fitting into a niche. But this compromises my work. It encourages me to make decisions that fit into a box of familiarity instead of the weird nuances that make up who I am. Meanwhile, it brings me great joy to walk through Disneyland. I'm excited by the new projects and expansions that are seemingly always on the horizon. I'm not trying to go to bat for the Disney Corporation and defend every single thing that they stand for. I'm just grateful I get to experience it in my own way. Isn't that why the details of Disney matter? By getting to a level of precision, Disney has made it possible to appreciate a world as a unique experience. People from all walks of life who speak any language can absorb the details in their own way. You get to be the main character, whether that's riding every ride, playing pretend with the characters, or any other combination of variables. I'm not conscious of the proper naming conventions as I ogle at the Millennium Falcon. I'm mostly just in awe that something that I saw as a kid on a TV screen actually exists in front of me in the real world. It ultimately doesn't matter what we call the various rides and restaurants at Disneyland because it isn't about them. It's about us and our shared experience at LaserTown.